Up until fairly recently, if you got your hands on a mobile home park, you can probably make 16%, 20% cash on cash returns, double your money in maybe 5 years. But I think with all this new competition and rising prices, it's getting harder and harder to kind of reach those returns.
This episode brought to you by Suites at Madison. Meeting and conference rooms for rent by the hour, week, month, or year. Suites at Madison, where business gets done. Check them out at www.downtowntampaoffice.com. Now, on to the show.
You are listening to the Invest Florida Real Estate Show, covering topics in lending, buy and sell strategies, property management, hot markets, and tips and tools to guide you along the way on your path to real estate success. You want Florida investment real estate talk? You have come to the right place. And now, our hosts, Eric Odom and Steven Silverman.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Invest Florida Real Estate Show. This is your co-host, Eric Odom, along with Steven Silverman. Steven, it's been a year now.
It's been a year. 2020 was the year of COVID. And during that period, let's just talk about the office market. All of us read about the end of the office market, how people were going to change. It was never going to be the same again. And maybe they're right, things will change. But as brokers out in the market, I can tell you that in the suburban office market and even downtown, it's not that easy to find office space.
Google makes everyone an expert, Steven. And I'm very cautious of that because, look, I go to the doctor, everybody goes to the doctor, and these folks go to school for an awful long time and then do residency, and then you get somebody come in and tell them that they're not doing their job right. And I'm sensitive to it because we hear it all the time. People, they read on the internet that X is happening or Y is happening, and they tell us what's going on. They're not working in the business, but they tell us what's going on.
And they're looking for a deal.
Yeah, they're looking for a deal. One thing we've preached, we've been consistent about, and we said that the office market would be the worst hit of the major asset classes. That's happened. But we also said, and have been consistent about this, do not bet against people being people. And the office market's coming back. The retail market is on fire. Now, not covered mall, that doesn't have anything to do with COVID. But the retail market is on fire. And, we were expecting a number of things to happen, which they did. It's all happened on an accelerated time frame. Restaurant, for example, was going away forever. And that's just such utter nonsense. It was nonsense when it was said a year ago when all this started, and it's proven to be nonsense now. It's just not happening.
But there's always a swing, a dramatic swing for people who don't agree and they would overreact.
Yeah, I had to, there was, I'm a member on numerous groups and message boards and things talking about real estate, and had some people attack me for saying, you don't know it. I'm in the market. If you don't want to take my opinion on what's going to happen, then don't listen to it. But I think that I'm somebody who does this on a day-to-day basis. I probably have a little bit more of a clue than some living room couch warrior that's read something on Time Magazine online. We were expecting the office market to be the worst hit it's been. And we also expected that you cannot run an organization from Zoom meetings. And that's exactly what's happening now. We're having our folks, our clients, we're seeing this in numbers, and not just anecdotal, is that they're chomping at the bit to get people back into the office. Now, is it going to look differently? Yeah, it's going to look differently because they've tested the boundaries of people being able to work at home and realized that some of this can be done. But the same thing that happened in 2010 is going to happen in 2021, which is, if people don't feel connected to your organization and you can't build a culture by having people face to face with each other, they're going to leave. And so that's exactly what's going on in the office market. As you're getting basically the ice breaking in employment's pretty tight. People are going to go, they're hunting for places where they can feel connected. In the last year, if nothing else, people realize how much they took connectivity. And I'm talking about real human connectivity. I'm not talking about Facebook. Right? that they took it for
I
granted.
think people got tired of being muted.
Yeah.
They want to look people in the eye and say their mind.
Well, I mean, for us, whether it be with employees or with clients or tenants, it's very hard to not be able to get in someone's face and see their body language and see their eyes and see how they're answering certain questions. It's too easy just to flip down the video, the camera, and hide from what's really happening, and drives me bananas, but I'm not the only one.
True. When you ask someone on Zoom, so is this really a good real estate deal? You can't tell that his fingers are crossed.
Exactly. So anyway, the retail market's on fire. The industrial market has been on fire. It's hotter than it's ever been. The office market is coming back. You know, we haven't seen the Armageddon, thanks in part to some very large stimulus to keep folks alive. We've not seen the Armageddon in the employment market or in any of the major asset classes. There's going to be some shifts in how people are using them and the quantity they're going to be using, particularly in the office space. But like we said when this all started, don't bet against humans being humans. Stephen, we like when people give us reviews.
Reviews are so important to us. So guys, if you're listening out there and you like what you hear, please give us a review. The reason it's important is we work hard to get good guests on the show so we can all learn. And the first thing they do is go and look at the reviews and see if they want to be on the show. And so far, I mean, we've had hundreds of thousands of downloads because people like the guests that come on. They get the education, and please keep giving us the good reviews so we can continue doing that.
Yeah, we don't monetize this at all. The reason Stephen and I started this podcast was we have our investor clients that would consistently ask us questions, same questions over and over again. And we started to create an audio of folks that really know the business, trying to go out and find people that are experts, whether it be in mobile homes or apartments or single family, and have them talk to you and answer those questions that are common. And so this is how it all started. We never really meant to monetize this. So what we ask you for in return is to help us keep the show going. And you can do that by, if you've not done so already, just go on and give us a review. It helps us a lot. We will read it on air. And our guests do go and look to see how many reviews we're getting, how many people are listening to the show, and that's how they make the decision on whether they're going to invest time with us or not. Stephen, we've got a topic today we've addressed many times, which is affordable housing.
Yep. So let's roll right into it.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about mobile home parks. So excited to have our guest today.
Today we have with us Eloy Retana. Eloy is a passionate real estate investor. He is based in Denver, Colorado, but he invests in Florida. Eloy is also the host of a podcast called The Savvy Mobile Home Park Investor. He is currently invested in 113 apartment and mobile home units. During the COVID-19 epidemic, mobile home parks have outperformed other real estate asset classes. And Eloy is going to talk to us about why he considers them to be a safer asset for investment as we enter a period of economic uncertainty. Eloy, welcome to the Invest Florida show.
Hey, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Hey, Eloy, we really appreciate you investing time with us today. Can you start with a 30,000-foot overview of how you got into the real estate business? And then we're going to migrate into why Florida and what you're doing over here in the state.
You betcha. I've been in real estate off and on for about 25 years. I remember I took a lease options course probably back in 98, 99 from a guy out here in Denver named Claude Diamond, and he taught me about lease options. That's kind of how I got started. Now, around that time, my IT career was taking off, and it just seemed like a crazy time to get invested in real estate when I had my IT career blowing up. So it's one of the things you look back and you realize, man, I wish I wouldn't have made that decision to kind of put real estate in the back seat and focus on my IT career, because I had picked up a couple houses here and there, but I wasn't fully committed as, for doing it full time. And looking back, I wish I would have chosen real estate, full time. But it's one of those things that you kind of look back and you realize that, well, there's still time to fix some of those issues, right? And there's still time to pick up some real estate for yourself and build some wealth.
Now, tell me how you got started in terms of, you say it was first single family, and then how did you migrate into mobile homes?
Yeah, it took some time. I'm one of these people who, like a whole lot of people back in 2008, I had acquired a sizable real estate portfolio of single family homes. And seemingly in 2008, I basically lost most of it, right? And most of my net worth and everything I had in my 401k, it seemed like overnight I lost almost all of it. And I realized I had perhaps not done things correctly. I too focused on the stock market. And if I was going to build something for the future, I was going to have to take a step back and try to figure out what is it that I really wanted. And what I really wanted was cash flow, right? I wasn't necessarily looking to, I had flipped some homes. I had done some wholesaling. I didn't enjoy any of that. It was way too transactional. And bottom line is I already had a full-time job, right, that I enjoyed in IT. But I wanted to do something that was a little bit, I can focus in my attention on a few things, on one or two things, and be able to scale, right? Around, I would say around probably 2015 or so, I met my partner through, of all things, salsa dancing. That's how him and I met.
Funny.
He was telling me that, we'd been friends, but we were chatting over, over some beers with some friends. And I asked him, hey, what do you do for a living? Because I flip homes. I'm like, no kidding. But he was a full-time investor at that time, and him and I became really good friends through that association, right, of real estate. And as time went on, he decided he wanted to kind of wind down his flipping business and wanted to do something else. And he had taken some multifamily underwriting courses through Anthony Chara's group out here in Denver. And shortly thereafter, he asked me if I wanted to partner with him, if I were interested. And I remember the first time he brought that up to me, I had never heard of such a thing of syndication and doing multifamily or apartments. I didn't know that was a thing. So the first time he brought it up to me, I was like, sure, Steve, I don't have millions of dollars to go buy apartments, man. But it sounded great, right? And he was like, no. He goes, no, that's not what we do. He goes, what we need to do is, he goes, we'll find the deals, and then we use investors' money to purchase these apartments, right? To put down the down payment and to fix these places up and turn them around and build some cash flow long term out of it. So after some time, by talking to him some more and by going through some of the meetups here in Denver, and I made some friends out here like Adam Adams, who's a big multi-family syndicator. He was saying some of those same things, and it really caught my attention that I can reach my goals quicker if I scale, right? If I go bigger and kind of don't focus so much on trying to build, portfolio of single-family homes. So Steve and I went, we decided to partner up, and we went down the road of looking for an apartment, and we spent quite some time looking for apartments in Denver and in Phoenix. And we couldn't find anything that made sense, right? Everything was just so overpriced, and it still is. And we decided to kind of expand our focus to other cities, to other markets, to see where we can find something. And one of those markets was Orlando, where we decided that we wanted to own something there. And as time went on, one day he calls me and he says, "Hey, I think I got something." And he said, "Okay, what do you got?" I said, I've got this mobile home park out in Cape Canaveral. And my first reaction to that was like, how did we go from looking for an apartment to finding a trailer park? And I was like dead set against it, right? I wanted nothing to do with it. And then he tells me, well, look at these numbers. He goes, we're not going to see numbers like this with any apartment complex. And to me, those numbers I was wowed by it, right? And I thought, you know what? Give me a few days, give me a week to kind of bury myself in mobile home park information, right? So during that time, I download every book that I can get my hands on. I listen to every podcast that talked about mobile home parks. I buried myself in information, and at the end of that, I thought, not only are mobile home parks the right asset for us as a new team, I think that the time is right, because I think we're entering. There's economic uncertainty as we move forward, and I think mobile home parks seem like they'd be well positioned to weather any sort of storm like that. So that's what we did. We purchased our first mobile home park in Cape Canaveral, and we kind of opened the doors right to that area, and other brokers knew that we were looking in those areas, and that's kind of that area right around the Space Coast, right? Cape Canaveral on the south end of the Space Coast, and then up into Daytona on the north end. That's kind of our little area. We've managed to build a great rapport there with some of the local brokers. So yeah, that's my story in a nutshell.
So I was just curious, when you were looking at that first mobile home park, was that a park where you own the units, or is it a park where you own the land and people rent the spaces with their own mobile homes?
There was a couple of units in that park that were park owned. The rest of them were owned by the tenants themselves, and that's ultimately one of the things that attracted me to mobile home parks, is the fact that in a great case, or not, it's not always true, but in most cases, we aim to own we aim to get rid of the park-owned homes, right? We don't want to keep them. That's not always the case. Sometimes it might make sense to keep them, but in that first park there were two, and we fixed them up and we turned around and we seller financed them. It was a good time because there was plenty of buyers in that area. And at this stage we don't own any of the homes. We just basically take care of the land, and we take care of there's a duplex on the property. We take care of that, obviously.
And then people don't move that often, right? Because it's not that easy just to move a mobile home.
They don't move that. In fact, we haven't had anybody move from our Cape Canaveral location, because a lot of those mobile homes are old. They're older homes. They're hard to get. If they're going to move them, first of all, it's not that cheap. You can't just back up a truck and pull it out of there, right? You got to get permits, and you probably want to get insurance, and nobody's going to insure a 40-year-old mobile home, if it gets wrecked on the way to its new location. So it's not that easy to move them. So we haven't had any issues like that. Which ultimately what that means for us is just more steady cash flow, right? Because you don't have people coming in and out all the time.
And you're syndicating your deals, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about that, how that works?
Yeah, well, our first deal is mostly we raise money from, our friends and people that knew what we were doing, and people that, that I had friendships that I had built over the years that knew that I did real estate, and my partner, Steve, that people knew him from doing single family flips and new builds. So we already had a small following of people that were basically waiting on us to find a good deal, right? So the mobile home park that we purchased, people jumped on it pretty quickly because, even though we were new to syndication and we were new to mobile home parks, we weren't new to real estate in general, right? We both had plenty of experience there. But basically what we're doing is we're raising money for the down payment and to do some of the repairs that need to be done from day one. If there's any structural issues or rehabbing of the duplex, for example, that needs to be done, we would raise money to take care of that quickly, right? And then some of the mobile homes that were park owned, we want to fix those up and turn around and sell them and recoup some of that money back. The money that we raise, that's what it would be used for. And of course, you want to keep several months of reserves, right? Just in the event of any contingencies.
Can we talk a little bit about the areas? I mean, it's still a little unusual that you lived in Colorado and then decided to invest in Florida. After you looked at the investment opportunity in the market, what made you decide to continue to invest in Florida?
I intend to move to Florida and retire out in Florida, right? It's one of those places that I enjoy coming to, that I've been coming to for years. I have tons of friends in Orlando that I come out here at least once or twice a year to visit with them. So it's not like I'm not familiar with the area. I'm pretty familiar with this area, and I knew that I wanted to own property here. I didn't, years ago, I didn't realize that it was going to be mobile home parks that I was going to be looking at. I figured it'd be single family homes and maybe a 16 or a 20 plex, but that it just turned out that mobile home parks were the right asset for us here.
Can you talk to us a little bit more about the syndication, in terms of, for someone who's like looking to get into that and leverage and get bigger deals, like what would you suggest to them in terms of, you go to an attorney, or is there someone specific who's putting together your private placement memorandums and to help you with that? How would you suggest to those folks that don't know how to do this to get started?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely want to talk to an attorney, an SEC attorney that's able to put a private placement memorandum and kind of draft the documentation for you. It's definitely not something you want to download. You don't want to download templates off of Google or something and then just do it yourself. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you go down that route. You're better off just doing things right, paying some upfront costs, some attorney fees to make sure that the paperwork is properly set up, right, for being able to raise money. There's rules around that. If you're doing a large raise, right, let's say you're going to raise $10 million, then chances are, unless you know enough people to help you raise $10 million, chances are you're going to need to promote yourself or promote your deal and advertise, right? And what that means is that you're going to have to do what's called a 506c deal, which basically means that you can take in accredited investors only, right? Anybody who's got a net worth of $1 million or more, minus their primary residence. The problem with that is that my friends and my family, they're not accredited investors, right? So if you've got a large deal and you got a really good deal, and unless your friends and your family are accredited investors, you're not going to be able to legally, let them into your deal, because it's got to be for accredited investors only. In our case, it was a small deal, so we anything I believe the number is anything under $2 million, you can do what's called a 504. Which allows you to bring in sophisticated, non-accredited investors, which is, like people like my mom and my friends who they don't know a whole lot about real estate. They know that I know, and they trust me to do the right thing. And it's one of those things you definitely gotta be informed about. It's not something you want to take lightly, because you can certainly get yourself in some trouble, some legal water, some legal hot water with the SEC.
Yeah, and there's and the state regulators too. It's interesting that a lot of folks will come to us and go, well, I'm my friend and my cousin and my grandma and a couple of their friends, or they're all just putting the money in, and we're just going to do this. And I ask, how's it coming with the documents? SEC docs. What are you talking about? Well, it's a security. Well, no, they're all friends and family. Well, that doesn't matter. I mean, there's a 3-prong test, the Howey 3-prong test, in terms of essentially if someone's coming to you that's not you, and they're passively giving you money with the intention of earning a return, then that's a security. And there's nothing in there about, well, if it's my aunt or uncle, then it's not a security. It's a security. If you're taking someone else's money and they're essentially hoping for a return, and they're expecting you to perform in a manner that's going to earn them a return, that is a security. There's nothing about relatives or friends or anything else in there. So, listeners out there have to be careful. It's something that they'll ask me all the time. I mean, they say, I heard this in the show. That's not really so. Because if you can do, I'm like, yes, it is. There's 3 pieces to it. 3 pieces to it. And that's it. If you meet that criteria, it is a security, and you have to register, period.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So what's going on in the mobile home park world? Are they building less mobile home parks now, and is supply becoming more difficult, or what are you finding in the market? Yeah,
there's definitely not. They're not building any more of them. Every now and then you might. I don't know what the number is lately. Last I heard is that on average there might be 100 or so mobile home park permits granted across the country, which is nothing. And I think a lot of it has to do with the stigma, right, that about mobile home parks, that at least the local politicians don't want mobile home parks in their communities. So an interesting thing about that is that you have a lot of talk right now about affordable housing, right, and how the government wants to provide affordable housing, and mobile home parks are exactly that. Yet they don't. I was just going to say the same thing. It's amazing. The building of new ones. It's amazing. Well, we got this big problem with housing, and it's just housing's doubled
in the last couple of years in terms of cost, and all the politicians giving lip service to the fact that what are we doing about the teachers and the firemen and the policemen and the nurses and the folks that, what are we doing about these folks who out working hard and trying to keep a roof over their head? I mean, in Florida, it's outrageous. I'm sure the same thing's happening in Denver.
I think there's a reason for that, because what happens in mobile home parks is the tax base is lower for a given area. And so you've got in a place, you'll have maybe 100 families.
And they're not contributing
not paying a lot of taxes and using up all the water and sewer, and so it's a burden on the local governments.
But what are the other solutions they have in terms of trying to house our working class? I mean, I mean, mobile homes, mobile home parks. And, it's funny because, Kevin Bupp is a friend of ours. And I'm sure when we talked about, before we got on the show, Kevin Bupp, that, and he does a lot of, he's got his own talk show, and he's been on our show, and a lot of people in Central Florida know him. And you see people, they'll even attack him saying, oh, you're just taking advantage of people. And you're like, what are you talking about? What are you doing to try to help have affordable housing in the community? And, Kevin's running clean parks, and I'm sure that's probably part of your strategy too, is to make a nice place for people to live and an alternative. I think we got to kind of nip this in the bud about the stigma about mobile homes.
I think the stigma comes from the tax base, and that's why the governments give it such a hard time, all the local governments.
And at least they're paying something, as opposed to, you're paying them to live someplace. Let's give them let's give them some dignity and a place to live, for God's sakes.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say that one of the questions that I get a lot from in general is, if mobile home parks are so great, why not build them from scratch, right? And that makes a lot of sense, except that, in a lot of places, at least out here in Colorado, trying to get permits for those, you're going to have to jump through hoops, because the city puts all sorts of hoops that you have to jump through to get anything done, right? And you could be potentially looking at years before you get the permits that you're looking for, and that's just probably not the best if you're gonna wait. So I think where the opportunities lies with at least for us is seeking out existing parks that are poorly managed mom and pop operations that could use an injection of money to turn these places around. Like you said, provide clean, safe places that are affordable to people, right? What's wrong with that?
So let's talk about it from your point of view. What kind of returns can an investor expect, or should they be looking for in a mobile home park as opposed to alternative investments?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that has changed over probably the last year is just the influx of new investors and equity money, private funds buying up mobile home parks, which is up until fairly recently, if you got your hands on a mobile home park, you can probably make 16%, 20% cash on cash returns, double your money in maybe 5 years. You can get some great returns, but I think with all this new competition and rising prices, it's getting harder and harder to kind of reach those sort of returns.
Yeah, so it's become an institutional asset, right? Isn't Berkshire Hathaway now deeply involved in that space?
That's right. Several hedge funds as well, and even some international hedge funds. Last time I checked, about 20% of all mobile home parks across the country were owned by, just big money, right? So they understand that there's relative safety in mobile home parks. So the cash flow is steady cash flow, and I think that's part of the reason they love, the big money loves the asset class so much.
Talk to us a little bit about Florida. I mean, you're out in Colorado, and what are you seeing from afar that you like so much about Florida?
Well, this year, I think for the first year that Florida wasn't the number one migrated to state, according to U-Haul statistics, right? People want to live in Florida. We haven't had any issues finding new tenants for us, when we have a vacancy in one of our parks. And that makes Florida very attractive, right? When you have tons of people moving in, prices are getting higher, going higher. It's getting more and more difficult to find parks that are decently priced. But one of the things that we do love about Florida is it continues to grow in population. Companies continue to move here. People continue to move here, and that makes it very attractive for somebody like us. Plus, who doesn't love the Florida weather?
Well,
right?
It's like we've got 2 weeks right now that we wait for the other 50 weeks out of the year for, and we're in it right now.
Right.
And then we're back to like the furnace on the head. But Stephen loves that. He's from Africa.
I'll take the heat any day over the cold.
Right. That's one of the things that I think of as I've grown. I mean, I've been in Denver now for 22 years, and one of the things that drew me out to Denver was just that cooler weather, right? But I think as I'm growing older, I'm seeking more sun and more heat, and Florida is one of those places that I always gravitate to.
Oh yeah, no doubt. You've got a partner, and I guess that whatever you're going to be doing in terms of syndications, talk to a little bit about partnerships and how that can be a key, but also perhaps some drawbacks to the partnership model.
Yeah, I think I've heard plenty of horror stories from other people that have had partnerships go awry, and I think part of the reason is I think from day one you have to have similar goals, right? For example, if I'm a buy and hold guy and I want to be able to buy a property and keep it for a very long time, and my partner is more of a flip it and sell it, I think those are, the partnership is going off in two different directions because you have people who want two different things, right? I think if you find partners that you obviously gel with, you have a good rapport with, that you respect each other, and on top of that, your goals are the same, right? You know where you want to be 10 years from now, you know where you want to be 15, 20 years from now, and those similar goals. I think you need to start off with something like that. You need to kind of take a step back and figure out, well, what is it that we want as an individual and as a team? What is it that we're trying to accomplish here? And can we meet these goals together, right? I think you can start with that.
Let me ask you just a structural question about mobile home parks, because when we think of a mobile home park, we think of what you said, older type assets, and, people buy them. They're not difficult. They're not easy to move, so they stay in them. But when somebody leaves, are there still people buying mobile homes and moving into parks if they can find the spaces?
Yeah, in fact, right now, mobile home builders, they're so backed up right now with new orders. It's kind of crazy right now. We purchased a brand new mobile home for one of our parks, and we were initially told it was going to take 3 months to have it delivered. And here we are 7 months later, and it's barely getting delivered, right? So there's such a demand for housing right now that the builders are backed up, right? So there's certainly demand. People want affordable housing.
Talk to us a little bit about the debt. Easier, harder over the last 12 months? What does that debt look like?
Well, since we needed to do some rehab and some work on some of our parks, we pulled out a bridge loan for some of our parks, right? To be able to put some debt on it on top of what we raised. And we're about to refi on our first, our Cape Canaveral property. We're about to refi on that. And I think there's a challenge there because you got banks that don't quite understand mobile home parks the way they might, and the way they might understand a multifamily unit deal, right? And so I would say there's less banks that do mobile home parks. You can still find them, but you have to work a little bit harder, right, to find those lenders. And another deal that we've done, it was owner finance. We got some great terms with owner financing. So that's always an option. If you know how to put deals like that together, you can pick up a property with owner finance, and then later, if you want to put some long-term debt on it, hopefully you will have built out your list of potential banks that can help you put on some long-term debt.
And so, is it typically local banks that are doing the lending on these deals?
Yeah, for us, it was definitely local banks. They know the areas. They know what we're doing. I'm not even sure that there's nationwide bank lenders. We haven't looked. I think that for us, it's been far easier to deal with the local banks. They know the areas, they know what we're doing, and it just makes it a little bit easier.
Are you able still to find new parks to invest in? I mean, if they're not making more parks, it has to be getting more and more difficult with more investors coming in. How do you go about trying to find these parks?
Yeah, certainly, and that is a problem because there's more investors, and then we have campaigns where we will cold call, we will send the letters, but one of the things that we get when we get somebody on the phone, they've been getting cards and 100 cards from other investors wanting to buy their property. So you have to figure out a way to kind of build rapport with people. You shouldn't, even if you get somebody on the phone, you shouldn't expect them to sell you their park right then and there. The idea is to start establishing some rapport so that even if they're not ready to sell now, they might be in the future, a year or 2 years from now. If you keep calling back and staying in touch with them and continuing to build rapport, well, there's an opportunity there because they'll remember you and you're the one calling back, right? Following up where other people just kind of give up, or they were so intent on buying on that very first phone call or second phone call that they never bother following up. The key is to continue following up and keep calling back and trying to build rapport with potential sellers.
Yeah, persistence and consistency. So, Eloy, if people want to contact you to maybe talk about investing or perhaps have a deal to do, how can they contact you?
Yeah, thank you for that. You can go to my website, partnerwithapex.com, and drop your email there, and you'll get my Calendly pop up, or you can text a free book to 474747, and you'll get a copy of my free ebook, The Top 3 Reasons to Invest in Mobile Home Parks, and you can get a hold of me that way.
Awesome. And what's next for Apex, Eloy?
Well, I think we're at the point where we want to diversify locations. We love Florida, and we want to continue buying there. But like anything else, it's not all that smart to put all your eggs in one basket, right? At some point, we need to diversify first. So we're looking at other markets that we would love to be in. Maybe we like Kansas City. I think Kansas City is an awesome market, and who knows, maybe some other markets as well.
Terrific. Eloy, we really appreciate the time that you invested with us today. And is there anything you want to say before we let you go today?
I'll tell you this. I think probably the best piece of advice for anybody who's looking to get started is, take action, because a lot of people, they'll go to these meetups and they want to get started, but they'll end up spending a lot of money on these training classes, right? But then they end up not actually doing anything, right? So right. I would say know why you want to be invested, and then pick a niche and then just go for it.
Awesome. Eloy, really appreciate it. Stephen, anything else before we let Eloy go?
No, thank you, Eloy. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks a lot for your time, guys. I really appreciate it.
And that was Eloy Retana. Stephen, what were your thoughts?
I think it's a great niche that Eloy chose because affordability is a problem. And so people who are in the mobile home parks are able to solve that problem, and then it's very difficult to move. So he gets stability and longevity of the tenants.
No question about it. It's interesting. Kevin Bupp, who does a lot of mobile home park investing, is in our market, and he's one of the well-known mobile home park guys around the country. And he does outside of the state of Florida, and Eloy does in the state of Florida. So I thought it was kind of interesting. We had a chance to chat offline a little bit about that. And obviously there's demographic issues that Eloy is seeing in Florida that makes it hard for him to say no to. So that's why he's investing in our market. Stephen, Eloy was a great guest. Where else can people find great guests? The one place to go about investing in Florida is go to our website, www.investfloridashow.com. You can download all the prior episodes, but even better, put the podcasts on your app and you can listen while you're driving or in the gym or just mobile somewhere. Guys, as always, we appreciate the time that you invest with us each and every episode. And until next time, hasta la vista.
You've just listened to the Invest Florida podcast with Eric Odom and Steven Silverman. Join us every week for actionable real estate investment ideas, and of course, visit our website at www.investfloridashow.com for more shows and tips on how to earn a cash flow in the real estate market in Florida. While hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show have no reason to doubt the validity of comments of our guests, we do not warranty their accuracy. Please check with your legal, financial, and tax advisors before entering into any investment. Returns will vary from person to person and deal to deal based on unique circumstances. All information expressed in this show is for educational purposes only. Opinions of the guests are not necessarily shared by the hosts and producers of the Invest Florida show.